take the roll, please?
Sure. Member Chaplin,
Here.
Member Chavez, Member Covert, Member Desart, Member DeCiani, Member Eckhoff, Member Garcia, Member Hart, Member Krajewski, Member LaPlante, Member Ozog, Member Pachalski, Member Renahan, Member Rutledge,
Here.
Member Schwarzy, Member Selman, Member Tornatore, and Member Zay. I got you.
Great, we have a quorum. So we move on to our presentations, and I'd like to call Jeff Martinowitz up. We're going to have a discussion on our general fund update.
Thank you, Chair Chaplin, and good morning, everybody. Wanted to take a few moments this morning to kind of briefly recap where we ended our fiscal year ending November 30th, 2021 budget. Needless to say, fiscal 21 was a very busy year from a budgetary perspective. So just to recap a little bit, some of you I know were here when we developed the budget. It was a very odd budget, to say the least, as we started out the fiscal year. We were right in the middle of a pandemic. And as we started to take in a lot of requests as far as expenses and revenues, in particular on the revenue side, we had adjusted down quite a bit from 2020. Some of you may recall that sales tax started out 15% down from 2020. And we were able to kind of inch that up as the pandemic relieved a little bit of the stress on that revenue source. And on the expense side, departments, you might recall, were asked to keep a status quo budget and come up with plans to cut their budgets 10, 15 to 20%. Very happy to report this morning, and I know we've had a lot of discussions about that. None of that came to fruition. In fact, we've had a very good budget year. So sales tax began to rebound in January of 21. The Playing Field Act, which now requires remote retailers to pay sales tax, came on the books. And at the time we prepared the budget for 21, we had no idea what that impact would be. At this point, we believe that change alone, that public act, probably generated another $17 to $20 million just in sales tax for the county. But that's not the only revenue source that we've seen very good returns in. And I'll be touching on that a little bit further. So as the year progressed, we developed surpluses in the general fund. And I want to kind of highlight now what those were. So if we can go to the next slide. An agenda item in your packet this morning, FIR 124, is a resolution to transfer another $9.5 million of surplus that will go directly into the infrastructure fund for the judicial annex that we've talked about. At this time, we are projecting another $10.3 million surplus, even with the transfers that we've done out. So as we begin our final audit, our unaudited figures are now showing an additional $10.3 million that we can use towards this annex. So during the year, we've transferred $23.7 million. And that is a breakdown of all of the projects, one-time projects that we've done that were approved by separate appropriation to be transferred to different funds. To again, totaling $23.7 million. And again, all approved via separate appropriation from the adopted budget. So quite a change from where we started to where we are right now. Next slide, please. So assuming that this additional $9.5 million will be approved, we will now have transferred $33.2 million in additional surplus from the general fund to other different funds to fund those one-time expenses. And as I touched upon, the combination of revenue growth, in particular sales tax, along with expenses really being under control. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. We came under budget in a lot of our operating expenses. So if these transfers were not made, the general fund would have ended fiscal 21 with a fund balance of 66.27% of our annual expenditures. And that would have been about 41.7% over the policy requirement that this board approves during the annual budget process of 25% of those operating expenses. So obviously the intent of all these transfers to fund, again, these one-time expenditures, but to keep our ending fund balance at fiscal 21 level from what we were at fiscal year 2020. And we'll review our fund balances later on in the presentation. So next slide, please. Let's see. So this is a consolidated income statement of the general fund. The first column there, the fiscal 21 year-to-date budget, we see our total revenues at 232.4 million. Our expenses at 222.1 million. That gives us the surplus of $10.2 million that we were just talking about. We put columns in there for the adopted budget, the approved budget, and the variances in matching where we were at in 2020. So I want to touch upon a little bit some of our other revenue sources that we've done very well with. I'll start out with other taxes. In that particular category, recording fees, such as our real estate transfer tax and general recording fees are recorded out of that category. That's done very well. For example, transfer stamps, we had a budget of $4.1 million. We came in at $6.2 million. That generated an additional $2 million in revenue. So staying with the recorder's fees, again, the general recording fee, we had a budget of $2.5 million. That came in at $4.9 million in that category. $2.4 million over budget. So again, very well, really good returns. In the category of intergovernmental, two areas that I want to touch upon here. The first being our personal property replacement tax, kind of an odd revenue source, but the county receives what are known as personal property replacement taxes, or PPRT. It's collected by the state and paid to local governments to replace money that was lost by local governments when their powers to impose personal taxes on corporations, partnerships, and other businesses were taken away in 1979. It's a historic year. The state estimates that these were the largest distributions that counties and municipalities have received since 1979, when this legislation went into effect. The total collections are divided into two portions. 51.65% of that pot goes to Cook County, and then the remaining portion goes to counties and municipalities throughout the state. So that revenue source, find my notes. We were over budget $2.1 million. We had an annual budget of $3 million, and that came in at $5.16 million. Income tax is another intergovernmental revenue source. I won't go over the details of that, but that's known as LGDF. We receive about 6% of the annual pot for LGDF, and that's distributed on a per capita basis to counties and municipalities. That was over budget by another $2.6 million. And the charges for services line item, our court fees, we kind of held up there. We were a little bit behind when we started the fiscal year because of COVID. Those court fees were really right on budget when you talk about our court GF assessment fee and our general court fines. So those are really kind of the highlights of our revenue sources. We'll talk a little bit about sales tax on the next slide. Staying on this slide though, if you look under our dollar variance, or our percent variance, you can see commodities, contractual services, capital outlay. all under budget for a total of, I think we were $5.6 million under budget in all of our operating sources. So again, as you combine both of those, this is why we generated these surpluses this year. Next slide. I know everyone's familiar with this slide. We sent out a monthly memo every month. When you take a look at in the yellow box, what we've generated in sales tax, 117.6 million versus our adopted budget of 91.9, or 28% over budget. And it's way over where we were in 2019 of $101.7 million. Okay, next slide. So this is a breakdown, our percentage of revenues by category. On the bottom there, the large shaded green area, our sales tax. You can see that we are 51.6% of our total budget now encompasses sales tax. Property taxes in this budget are at 10.7%. And then the rest, you can see a breakdown by our other categories. What's distorted this number a little bit, on the top, 9.2% other financing sources. Those are transfers to other funds. I should say transfers in from other funds. We received $11.2 million in our final CRF allocation in 2021, and we recorded it this year. So just to get a general idea of what the breakdown is of all of our major categories as far as revenue. On the expense side, if you change slides, personnel, again, the largest green portion came in at 64% of our total expenses. On the top, the 20.8%, those are transfers out to other funds. That is higher this year because of all the one-times that we did, one-times to other funds. So next slide, please. The final slide, probably the most important slide, is we talk a lot about this metric, fund balance, and what our operating expenses are compared to our fund balance. So starting out in 2017, when you look at the boxes, in the green area are expenditures, the blue area is our fund balance. Our fund balance at the end of 2017 was 69.95. And we've had growth in 2018, 2019, and in 2020, obviously more one-time revenues for CRF, that increased it. And where we are currently at, the last bars there for 2021, operating expenses at $222.2 million would give us a fund balance of 108.6 and a percentage of 48.87% of those expenses. So if the $9.5 million transfer is approved in the agenda and at the county board meeting this morning, we will end the general fund with a fund balance of $99.1 million, or 44.6% of our operating expenses. That's a very strong fund balance as far as cash. That correlation between fund balance and cash right now is very close. We have about $101.1 million in the bank just for the general fund. So right now, as it stands, we're in a pretty good position.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation, Jeff, and I'd like to open it up for questions. And I saw member Desart and then member Zay.
Jeff, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm wondering, could we go back 3 slides from where we left off there when you showed the slides? And while we're getting there, I also appreciate that you sent the presentation out yesterday so we had time to kind of digest it. I really appreciate
No
that.
problem.
Is it possible to go back to the slides? Okay, go back 1, 2. Yes, that one. Thank you. Basically, Jeff, my question is, I want to understand. Can we go back to 6? I just for my own edification, I want to understand the other funding sources, that 9.2%. for FY 2021. Is that the grants the county receives, or what exactly is other financing sources?
Other financing sources are transfers in from other funds. The largest source
Other
was
county funds?
other county funds.
Okay, so not grants and other funds. that come in.
It's intergovernmental, it's between funds. And the reason why the 9.2% represents mostly the CRF transfer. We remember the CARES fund, we had money in a specific CARES fund.
Mhm.
And because of our public safety expenses, we were able to transfer in $11.2 million from CARES into the general fund. So you'll see that percentage there as a transfer in.
Gotcha, I get
Yeah.
it now. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you, Member Dessart. Member Zay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, I wish we would got this presentation a little bit sooner because I've got a bunch of questions. One, we swept 11.2 million, so that's sitting in our reserves right now from CARES Act.
If we do the whole 9.5, that money will have been used now for all these one times.
Wait a minute. You said the 9.5 was coming from additional sales tax. Which one is it? CARES Act we swept last year.
Well,
Right.
our goal was to get our fund balance at our 2020 levels. So I guess you could say that because with the CARES fund that was swept in 2020, we were at $98 million in fund balance. So there is still some CARES money in the general fund.
Okay, well, that's my concern. When we got federal money to use for CARES Act, we should be using that for CARES Act to help the people, not for padding our general fund. That opens us up to possible tax objections down the road. Since you saw what our balance was in 2017, now it's almost doubled or on a pretty considerable amount. I mean, if we got CARES Act money, we should be using that for what it was designed for, not to sit in our reserves or not to build stuff. This should be, we're using ARPA money, we're using everything else. My concern is we seem to just be spending at a record pace here. As we know, inflation is up the highest it's been in 40 years. Gasoline's up, natural gas, electricity, price of cars, price of everything else. And unfortunately, I've been here long enough to see this doesn't continue an upward trend. At some point, it's going to come crashing down. And I know we've done a good job of also, compensating our employees, but has anybody thought about our pension obligations with IMRF and possibly paying some of that down in the future? Because as we raise everybody's salary, our pension obligation also goes up, and that's going to be down the road. And so we don't have, issues like that. It just seems like we get it and we spend it. I mean, kind of like drunken sailors. I can say that because my dad was in the Navy, but that's my concern, is that if we got CARES Act money, we should be using that for CARES Act projects, not for building new courthouses and building new everything else. If we've got sales tax money to do that, then let's use that. But we also got to think about maybe saving a little bit of money and using that maybe in the future, paying down some debt, paying down some other stuff, not continually have construction at every building here on the campus. Well, every building on the campus except 421. We seem to be we don't need anything over here. We're perfect, like Grant says. But again, if we looked at paying down any of our IMRF obligations for pensions down the road.
We've talked about it. One of the things that we've done with our
But it's funner to build stuff.
What's that?
But it's funner to build stuff.
I didn't.
It's funner to build stuff.
Well,
Member Zay, let him finish,
Okay.
please. Okay, thank you.
So as far as debt, we did pay off 2 bonds, $6.3 million of that. We talked about, whether we can really pay down retention and some of that IMRF liability. With the buildings being needed to be done here and those requests, we felt that not issuing debt was a good option and to pay cash. So as far as our reserves and, saving for the rainy day with a possible recession that might come up and things that you've said that are going on in the economy right now, if we didn't do some of these transfers, we'd be at 62% of fund balance. So you have to kind of balance that with how much money do we keep in reserves and how much money do we put towards things like you said, paying down debt, retention, or doing one-time expenses, such as what we've done during the year. So it's kind of a balancing act. And as far as the CRF, remember, that money was specific to recapturing our public safety expenses. So those expenses actually got incurred in 2020. So it's part of the $99 million that is now in reserves. So I guess that's how I would answer some of those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have member Schwerzy, member Pachowski, and then member Krajewski. Okay, go ahead, member Schwerzy.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for your presentation. My question just revolves around the expenditures from 2021 versus 2018, 19, and 20 regarding contractual expenses. You know, we seem to have a right around 13.5% for 3 years in a row, and that dropped down to under 10%. I think it's on the second to last slide. You went from 13.5 down to 9.7. So that seems like a big chunk of expenses that we cut a bunch of contracts and
Well,
doing it in-house now, or
we
what?
didn't cut, we just basically came in under budget. The other thing that's going on too is in the on the top there, the blue shaded portion, that's the other financing uses, the transfers out. We've done more transfers out to these funds for the one-time expenses. And that's going to reduce all these other categories just by the formula.
Thank you, member Schwerzy. Member Pachowski.
The construction that we're doing for the state's attorney, public defender, and probation, only a small portion of that money is ARPA money, correct? And that's been approved for use.
Yes, yes.
And if we have fund balances, we want 25%. When we have something over that, to me, is there anything unreasonable about taking care of our buildings, such as new construction, to make sure that we don't have 5 people in an office space?
No, there's nothing unreasonable.
All right,
If it's
so-
a one-time
and this
expense,
doesn't affect our existing fund balance, because you're saying it's anything over 25% is something that we could use and better the complex then. All right.
yes.
Thank you, member Pachowski. Member Krajewski.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of Vegas money from DC. Thank you. I kind of agree a little bit with member Zay, but maybe you could get us, I guess, this report on how much we've been spending on campus improvements and buildings. I mean, the sheer magnitude of it. And the CARES money, we did use it for public safety. If we budgeted 40 million for the sheriff and the state's attorney for CARES, we just took all the rest of the ARPA or CARES money and just said it's for public safety. And therefore we didn't use all the money budgeted for that. So we did use it for CARES, but it's now in our reserves and we can use it for whatever we like. And if that's more programs, getting more services to the constituents or building a building, we can do either or. We're building a lot of buildings.
Absolutely.
So-
It's really a comfort level.
Right.
Where does the board feel comfortable at as far as the percentage of reserves? Given that almost 55% is sales tax and that can be volatile.
Yeah, and with the reserve at 65%, that's fine. But each year as we give out 2% COLA and we give additional
Right.
raises and we've been pushing a lot more equity adjustments, our budget goes up, which
Right.
means our reserve balance goes down. Right?
Absolutely.
As a percent. So, we need to continue to add to the reserves if we're going to keep it at 65%.
And I should touch upon that, not cut you
ahead.
off, member, but we came in at 117 million for sales tax. Our budget is at 109 million.
That's my next
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So I know we finished at 117, you budgeted 108.
Yeah.
I think the only last report I got was January. Did we get February? I assume we got February's number, right?
I have to send that out. I'm actually waiting for the next one to come out.
But that would be March, right?
March, this next report that I'll send out will be for Christmas sales.
Sure, right. But the last one I think we got was with January.
Yeah,
I think you sent it January.
sales tax, I can tell you for February was up over $10 million.
It was up over 10 million.
The gross allotment that we received.
Right. So we're already ahead of the, whatever. And so, my guess is I don't see anything changing in that. I mean, gas prices are double. We get sales tax on gas, right? So we're doubling. I mean, people may use less, but not 50% less. So, I mean, inflation's running rampant, which means our sales tax is going up by the cost of inflation unless people cut down. So, I mean, it appears we're going to have a huge surplus again this year, just because we budgeted only 108 for sales tax. And that goes maybe to a comment member Zay said, let's using sales tax maybe to use it for buildings versus pulling it out of our reserve.
Sure.
So, but, and you haven't got March's number yet?
We'll check here. It's now the 8th, so it should be coming in real soon. It usually comes in by the 10th of the month.
And so we'll have January, February, March, we'll have 3 months
Right.
here. And then my guess is they're all gonna be, way above the 108. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Member Krajewski, Member Renahan, and then Member Dysart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Jeff, for the presentation today and for all you've done, Mary Catherine and your team all along to make sure that the guardrails that we're hitting every step along the way so that we can make sure if there is any kind of audit that we're doing the proper thing. So I do appreciate that. And I think we need to make the point that when we build a building, it is a service to our constituents. The court system, certainly our investment there is very important going forward to our residents. And the animal center, the care center, the investments that we're making, I think those are, it's not for our benefit for us sitting here. It really is for the constituents. So I think that point needs to be made. The question I have for you is, what was the number on online sales tax again?
I think it generated between 17 and $20 million in new sales tax.
Okay, I mean, that just blows me away, right? So
It's shocking.
I mean, we're never going to probably see another year like that just because everyone was home and doing so much shopping from home. I think we'll continue, but not to the same
Okay.
degree, right?
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
just wondering going forward, how are you planning on forecasting that for next year?
Well, our 2022 budget is at $109 million in sales tax. So, we have to see where expenses come in at. Ideally for me, I wouldn't want to max that out to 117 million in one budget year. We'd like to incrementally grow sales tax and then match expenses with that. So it's a little early right now to really get a feel for where we might be with revenues. It has to play out a little longer. But the key always is to control our expenses, in particular operating expenses, and have that match our revenue growth over many years, if possible.
Thank you, Member Renahan, Member Dysart, and
Thank
then
you.
Member Krajewski.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I've heard different numbers, but I think your presentation said that our fund balance is 48.87% of our expenses. And Member Krajewski just said it was 65% of our expenses. So
Yeah.
I want to get the right number. I think your presentation was 48.87. Is that, what is the question?
If
Our fund balance is what percentage of our expenses?
If the resolution is passed today to transfer 9.5 million, our fund balance will be 99.1 million, which is 44.6% of our expenses.
So I wonder where the 65% came from.
If we did not do any of these one-time transfers and we kept all the money in the general fund, our fund balance would have increased to 66.7%.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to make a quick point that I have been in agreement with Member Zay since the beginning since we got the ARPA money, that we're spending this ARPA money like drunken sailors, to use your term, Member Zay. And I want to keep some in because we don't know what the future holds as far as another variant or another pandemic of a different coronavirus perhaps. But I do agree with Member Renahan that reinforcing our courthouse, reinforcing our buildings is valuable to the citizens of DuPage County. And that puts us ahead of maybe leaving dilapidated buildings to a DuPage County board in 5, 10, 20 years. So I think we're fiscally responsible for maintaining our buildings in the way they should be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dysart. Member Krajewski, then I have Member Ozad, then Member DeCiani.
Just real quick, Jeff, you made a comment about incrementally growing sales tax and budgeting. I mean, I'm used to budget and business world. You budget what you think your expenses are going to be, you budget what you think your revenue is going to be, and you go from there. We, as you can see from the last many, many years, are always way under budget on expenses because we inflate our expenses on the budget. We don't spend as much as we budget, so we're always under there. That's hence why we've been having these big surpluses. And on the revenue side, I think with the wafer case coming in, Supreme Court had wafer, I think we know that we've got a long history now of how much revenue is coming in from that. And I know we've been really conservative in trying to budget our revenue. We did it last year. we start walking, halfway through the year, or $10 million over. I said, we're gonna hit about 117. You could just see it from the numbers. That's exactly where we hit the sales tax at the end of the year. So you could see that coming 8 months out. That was the number. Again, I think you're gonna see when you get the next 2 months in. So, I know the history here. We under budget our expenses and we under budget our revenues. And our revenues come in higher and our expenses come in lower at the end of every year. And we have these huge surpluses over the last many years. For us as policymakers, I would like to see a realistic budget, what we think the expenses are gonna be, what we think the revenue is gonna be, and go from there. Because it just, it's my opinion, and that's the way it typically works. But that's not how we've been doing it here you just got here, but that's how we've been doing it for years. Hence why you've seen that surplus from 17 grow, because again, expenses come in 92%, 93% because they're too high.
Right.
And same with the revenue. It's too low.
Thank
Call me
you.
conservative.
Thank you, Member Krajewski. Member Ozak?
First of all, as a Navy mom, I would prefer not to have drunken sailor references made, but that aside, I think that we really need to consider that deferred maintenance serves nobody. And eventually, if we don't take care of things right now, when we do have funds, you will end up in a deferred maintenance situation. And, all of it, everything we have on this campus, at our auxiliary sites, water, everything else is serving our constituents. So I agree with Member Renahan that we are, I think, spending money reasonably, but making sure that we're going forward and taking care of things that need to be taken care of. And again, deferred maintenance serves nobody, especially our constituents.
Thank you, Member Ozak. Member DeCiani?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I would just like to indicate that while I'm concerned too about our fund balance, nearly a 50% fund balance is very healthy. And also, a lot of the improvements that we're looking to do are really preparing for the future. The courthouse is a preparation for, God forbid, we do have another pandemic. There is a lot more space. There's a lot more separation, et cetera. So we are thoughtful. Chief Judge Kopter is, I think, very thoughtful in this process. We sat down with him. It definitely made sense. So it's not like we're just spending this foolishly. We are planning for the future. And God forbid this were to happen again. We've got updated ventilation systems. We have people more spaced out, et cetera. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. But I think these improvements definitely are preparing us for that future. So I do support them. And again, a 50% fund balance is pretty darn good. Now, I do have to mention that a lot of that fund balance is because of our surpluses from CARES and from ARPA, et cetera. So we can't get carried away. But I think what we're doing right now is pretty prudent, and I support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Akaf?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to maybe correct a reference that everyone's making. We're not using these funds to avoid deferred maintenance. We're using these funds, especially for the courthouse, because of that goofy crime bill that got passed last year. It's requiring us to hire about 20 new attorneys and find places to office them, and more probation and things like that. So we're adding, not maintaining what we had because of that crime bill. And the animal shelter, that's a victim of its own success. We've got a great staff working over there. I think our committee is very good. And I don't think that facility's really been added onto substantially in 20 years, and our county's grown, and our reputation about being a great animal shelter has grown. And unfortunately, we get a lot of people who don't do the type of work that we do, and they bring their animals over to us. So neither one of those are deferred maintenance. They're capital projects that need to be made for one reason or another, but we're not deferring maintenance. The maintenance that we are doing, like the cameras at the courthouse and things like that, are 20 years old, and they have to be replaced, and they're going to wear out. And that should have been the normal process that we budgeted for, and I think it is. That's why our capital fund's going up while we continue to do these things.
Thank you, Member Akaf. Member Zay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we're building a new courthouse over at the jail. I don't think that's deferred maintenance. I think that's the crime bill. So, and I'm just concerned, Nick, is this all this money for deferred maintenance? Is this why we're building this? Are these buildings in disarray over at the courthouse? I mean, it doesn't seem like it. I think your staff's done a pretty good job of maintaining when we need to put roofs in and ventilation and everything else, we've done that. If there's any deferred maintenance problems, I think it's our parking decks and some other things that need to be done. That then we're talking about deferred maintenance. We're not talking about the courthouse. We're adding this because of, like Member Eckhoff said, we need space for attorneys for the public defender and the state's attorney. Need to add a courthouse because of the new bill. I mean, that's what a majority of this is, isn't it?
So a lot of good discussion on capital today, and obviously every single project that we've brought before you, we've had good discussion on. And I think that it's different for every project. The care center is one of those, it needs to be upgraded to meet the needs of the community today. I would say that a lot of the projects we got done under CARES Act and under ARPA are making us a stronger, every single building stronger. It makes it a safer building environment. I would say that what you're voting on today, the contract for 19.8 million, I think it's a combination of all of those. I think that you have, I mean, the public defender has come before you many years saying, it's too tight, but clearly there are new needs that we have never anticipated that have come to light that we now must, bring into the judicial complex. So I mean, it's a combination of the needs, pent up needs, new needs, and this is solving everything we brought before you. And the list we have that Jeff went over that we paid for 2021, they're all one-time needs. And we were very cognizant of not adding programmatic, additions or not adding personnel or headcount additions for that, but paying off debt, paying down obligations we already had, the Tyler tax system, pent up demands we had. So, to answer your question, members, the judicial complex is a combination of obviously new needs and old needs.
Nick, have you ever thought about running for office? Because that sounds like a pretty good answer. You never really got to my question, but that's the way that sounds good. But again, a lot of this is, it's not deferred maintenance over there. It's new needs. It's not that the buildings.
There are new
falling
needs in
apart.
this 19.8.
Okay.
There's new needs we're building into judicial.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Zay. Thank you, Nick. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to be sure that everyone understands, I was talking about avoiding in the future deferred maintenance. I'm not inferring in any way that staff has been guilty of that. However, I think that if you look at some of the expenditures that we've made since I've been on this board, the Tyler tax system replaced a how many year old system? The voting machines, 20 years old. It's not all just about bricks and mortar. We need to assess needs and do it in a timely fashion, which I believe that our current situation will allow us to do. And as for the courthouse, if I recall correctly, the courthouse was built on a foundation that allowed it to have a possible extension in the future. So we really don't need to put everything on the crime bill, and we can certainly have arguments about that kind of thing, but expanding the courthouse strengthens both our judicial and our public safety provisions to our public. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozog. And do we have any other questions from the committee members? Okay, so I'm just going to have a few little comments here. We do have a nice, strong reserve balance, and that reserve balance also helps us keep our bond rating where it needs to be. If we drop that reserve too low, our bond rating could be in jeopardy. So that's something else to keep in mind. There are a lot of building projects that we're doing, and not only do those projects serve the community, they create a lot of jobs. So we're also providing a lot of jobs to our hopefully our residents, people that live in DuPage will be working on these projects. So, that's another aspect of the positive of the building. And Jeff, I think it was a really good presentation. We really haven't had a presentation like this. This is something new, and I think it's really great. And I think it would be beneficial for the board to have a presentation like this every quarter, so we know where we are. And especially going into budget season, I think that'll really help us with going forward with our budget. Thank you so much. So thank you all very much. Appreciate your time and attention to that. So do we have any public comment? Okay, no public comment. Chairwoman remarks. I would just like to wish Member Rutledge a happy birthday. So happy birthday. So, and then with that, could I have a motion on finance committee, I can't talk this morning, finance committee regular meeting minutes of February 22nd? We have a motion by member Desart, a second by member Renahan or Rutledge. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. We move on to budget transfers. Can I have a motion on FIR 012522, resolution to budget transfers from 3/8/22, various companies and accounting units? We have a motion by member Desart, a second by member DeCiani. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. We move on to procurement. We have finance, member Krajewski.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Move on FIP 0089-22, recommendation for approval of a contract to Government Business Systems, Inc. for the election supply kits and supplies not to exceed $158,917.50.
Okay, I have a motion by member Krajewski, a second by member Desart, and a question, member Zay?
Yes, the only question I had, it says 285 kits. Is that the same for the 2020 election? I assume
Is that the same for the 2020 election?
it's the same amount of election kits, so same amount of polling places, or?
I would have to double check if it's the exact same amount, but yes, that's the
That's around the
comparable
same.
amount of polling places. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We move on to Health and Human Services, member Renahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of change order HHSP 250A-20, amendment to resolution HHSP 250-20, issued to pay suburban bus services to provide transportation services for DuPage County veterans, October 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2021, $8,324.80.
Okay, I have a motion by member Renahan, a second by member Covert. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. We move on to item C, Judicial Public Safety, member Renahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of Jpsp 78-22, recommendation for approval of a contract purchase order to Insight Public Sector for microphones for the county court system, $41,820.
A motion by member Renahan, a second by member Covert. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Renahan.
Thank you. I move approval of JPSP 79-22, recommendation for approval of a contract purchase order to Clear Loss Prevention for security system replacement and repair services for our Office of Emergency Management from March 8th, 2022 through March 7th, 2025. Not to exceed $305,938.59.
We have a motion by member Renahan, a second by member Covert. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Renahan.
Thank you. I move approval of JPSP 80-22, recommendation for approval of a contract issued to Conference Technologies for purchase, installation, programming of monitors, receivers, and other equipment for the courtrooms, March 9th, 2022 through June 30th, 2022, not to exceed $140,466.84.
I have a motion by member Renahan, a second by member Covert. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, member Renahan. We move on to Public Works with member Ozog, but I just want to mention that after we take the vote on the first item, I'll be welcoming the Honorable Pope Joy up here to the floor for a few minutes. So member Ozog.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, as I've said before, I want to thank all of our staff, procurement, Public Works, Finance, the Judicial Division, for all of your hard work to make this contract possible. Secondly, I want to definitely thank Chief Judge Popejoy for bringing all of the board in to discuss the needs of the judiciary going forward so that we can do this addition in a very reasonable and wise way. However, I'm troubled by information that's come to my attention in the past week. The vice chair for my committee, member Hart, has received a $3,000 donation from a white architect on 2/24/22 after the original purchase order for this contract was initiated on February 18th, 22. In the interest of transparency and good government, I respectfully ask that Mr. Hart and any other member who's received a campaign donation from White or their employees recuse themselves from today's vote.
So I have, is that a motion? Do you want to make a motion for that?
I'll move that if
Okay.
you've received a donation from January 1st
Oh, no,
on.
no, not a motion. I mean, a motion on the item, and then we can discuss.
Well, I'd like to, can we have a discussion first? It's a request. It's really not
Okay.
part of the,
Um, can we-
okay, then we'll do a motion for the item
yeah,
and then we'll
yes.
have discussion.
Because I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I move for approval of
I'll
FMP 0.
second it.
I move for approval of FMP 008122, recommendation for the approval of a contract to White Construction Services to provide architectural and engineering design services and professional construction manager services under a construction manager at risk guaranteed maximum price method of delivery for the judicial annex improvements, bond courtroom expansion at the jail, and for 2 new courtrooms at the judicial office facility for facilities management for the period March 8th, 2022 through November 30th, 2026, for a total contract amount not to exceed $19,800,000. Professional services, architects, engineers, and land surveyors vetted through a qualification-based selection process in compliance with Illinois Local Government Professional Services Selection Act. Excuse me. Partial ARPA item. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion by member
Second.
Ozog.
Seconded it already.
What was that?
I seconded. it
Oh,
already.
motion, second by member Desart. Okay, discussion.
And I-
Member Desart, and then.
Thank you. Based on member Ozag's comments, I would just like to request a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Member Chaplin,
Aye.
member Chavez, member Covert, member Desart, member DeCiani, member Eckhoff, member Garcia, member Hart,
Aye.
member Krajewski, member LaPlante, member Ozog,
Aye.
member Petrowski, member Renahan, member Rutledge,
Aye.
member Schwarzy, member Selman, member Tornatori, and member Zay.
All ayes, the motion carries. Thank you, member Ozog.
I move for approval of FMP 008522, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Home Medical Limited to furnish and deliver an additional 20 indoor air quality disinfection units to be used across campus.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry, Pope Judge.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on up.
Please
No, come on up. I'm
forward.
sorry to interrupt. Come on up, please.
Forgive me, I'm sorry.
We got a little distracted. Come on up.
Thank you. I just wanted to, with the passage of that last resolution, I just wanted to thank you all on behalf of myself, the 47 other judges in the 18th Judicial Circuit, the state's attorney, the public defender, the probation department. You guys put a lot of hard work and effort into this. You gave me a lot of constructive comments. You had a lot of initial criticisms about various things, why we're doing it, what we do. You asked the hard questions. You asked the hard questions. And I hope that we answered them to your satisfaction, and it looked like we have with a unanimous vote. But what I did want to note, when new projects come about, it's kind of significant. There's a lot of things when I was in the practice of law and did new projects, we'd have little tokens of remembrance of what was going on. So the judiciary got together, non-budget items of all kind of nature. Don't worry about a thing. But we have put together a little token of, I think they're called, what are they called in the in armed services? Challenge coins, yes. So we put together a little challenge coin. We made 18 of them. I wanted all of you to have one. And I just wanted to thank you as a remembrance of what you all did.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it has been a pleasure working with you on this project.
Yeah, really. Thank you. Oh, somebody else just said it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judge Popejoy. It's been a pleasure working with you on this great project. So thank you very much. And Member Ozak, you have the floor again. I'm sorry for that. So go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll start again with item 2. I move for approval of FMP 008522, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Home Medical to furnish and deliver an additional 20 indoor air quality disinfection units to be used across campus for facilities management for the period March 9th, 2022 through November 30th, 2022 for a total contract amount not to exceed $63,130 per pricing being held from previous quote. This is an ARPA item.
I have a motion by Member Ozak, a second by Member Desart. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Ozak?
Thank you. I move for approval of FMP 008722, recommendation for the approval of an agreement between the County of DuPage, Illinois and Greeley and Hanson LLC to provide professional engineering design services for the replacement and upgrade of the existing control system for the power plant for facilities management for the period March 8th, 2022 through November 30th, 2023 for a total contract amount not to exceed $71,146. Professional services vetted through qualification-based selection process.
I have a motion by Member Ozak, a second by Member Desart. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Ozak?
Thank you. I move for approval of PWCO 000822, recommendation for the approval of an amendment to resolution PWP 012221 issued to Waste Management due to needed additional funds for disposal of refuse and grit waste at the Vector Station due to an increase in usage for Public Works to increase the contract in the amount of $15,000, taking the original contract amount of $47,000 and resulting in an amended contract total amount not to exceed $62,000, an increase of 31.91%.
I have a motion by Member Ozak, a second by Member DeCiani. Member Desart, did you have a question? Oh, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Member Ozak?
Thank you. I move for approval of PWP 008322, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Curry Motors Fleet for the purchase of one 2023 transit van for Public Works for a total contract amount not to exceed $32,696, pricing and compliance with Government Joint Purchasing Act, Suburban Purchasing Cooperative.
Have a motion by Member Ozak, a second by Member Desart, and Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Chaplin. I just want to make a quick comment on this. I know that myself and Member Deacon Garcia have been pressing for electric or hybrid vehicles that we purchase. And I guess I'm the first one to say when it doesn't make sense, then we shouldn't go forward with that. And Nick has explained to me that the range on the electric on this was not very far. The pricing was way out of whack. And so I understand this. I'm supporting this vote today. But I am going to continue to urge everybody here to look at a different metric beside just price for these kind of purchases. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Member Ozak?
Thank you. And in discussion of this item, that was electric hybrid was certainly taken into account, but these are mainly used by electricians and they're on call and could be going further than what I believe is 125-mile charged range. So as time goes on and the technology develops, I'm sure we will be able to consider that. So we are looking at these vehicles, but at this point, the utility and the price, it's not going to be possible in every situation.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you both for those comments because staff did look at all the options. So and I think they know that that's something that this board is really pushing. So, but they did do a great job vetting this vehicle. So any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Ozak?
I move for approval of PWP 008422, recommendation for approval of a contract to LAI Limited for the purchase of Worthington and Ingersoll Rand centrifugal pump replacement parts for the Woodridge, Knollwood, and Nordic wastewater treatment facilities for a 4-year period, March 8th, 2022 through March 7th, 2026 for Public Works for a contract total not to exceed $70,000. Competitive bids, not suitable for competitive bids, a sole source.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Ozak, a second by Member Desart. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And Member Ozak?
Thank you. I move for approval of PWP 008622, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Univar USA to provide sodium bisulfate at the Woodridge and Knollwood facilities for Public Works for the period April 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023, for a contract total amount not to exceed $40,000 per low bid under bid award 21105 PW.
I have a motion by member Ozak, a second by member Desart. Any discussion? Oh, go ahead, member Rutledge.
Thank you again, Chair Chaplin. Just a quick comment at our environmental committee last week. Kay McKean did talk about salt and how much of that is coming into our environment and then you just can't clear it off. So I just want to make the comment that I hope that we are taking a look at any alternative we can to limit the amount of salt that we add to our environment. So that's my only comment.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much, member Ozak.
Thank you.
We move on to stormwater. Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on SMP 8822, approval of contract issued to AMS Mechanical Systems to furnish all equipment, labor, material, tools, supervise necessary construction, Elmhurst Court East Lobe pipe replacement, $1,100,979.24.
Okay, I have a motion by member Zay, a second by member Desart. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, member
ma'am.
Zay. We move on to technology. Member Selman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on TEP 76-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Carsoft Technology Corporation. This is for our legislative management software and streaming services. It's contracts from April 1st, 2022 through November 30th, 2024 for a total of $118,480.81. It was bought via the Governmental Joint Purchasing Act.
Okay, I have a motion by member Selman, a second by member Covert. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Selman.
Thank you. I move on TEP 90-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to SHI International for annual maintenance and support of our firewalls. This contract covers March 25th, 2022 through March 25th, 2023 for a total of $37,608. And this was also bought via the Governmental Joint Purchasing Act.
I have a motion by member Selman, a second by member Desart. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And member Selman.
Lastly, I move on TEP 91-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to SHI International for Zendesk customer service subscription solution and subscription for IT. This contract goes from April 1st, 2022 to April 31st, 2023 for a total of $49,106.82, also bought via the Governmental Joint Purchasing Act.
I have a motion by member Selman, a second by member Desart. Discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, member Selman. We move on to transportation. Member Pachowski.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I would move to approve change order DTP 0121B20, amendment to a resolution issued to Knight EA Inc. for professional design engineering services for improvements to the bridge carrying Worthington Road over the east branch of the DuPage River to re-execute the agreement with the latest IDOT forms and most current execution date.
Okay, I have a motion by member Pachowski, a second by member Desart. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Pachowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move to approve DTP 0077-22, recommendation for the approval of contract to Petroleum Traders Corporation to furnish and deliver gasoline and diesel fuel as needed for Division Transportation Public Works for a contract not to exceed $1,275,000.
I have a motion by member Pachowski, a second by member Desart. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Member
Thank
Pachowski.
you, Madam Chair. Move to approve DTR 010922, a resolution for a local agency agreement between the County of DuPage and the Illinois Department of Transportation for improvements at Warrenville Road over the east branch of the DuPage River, county to reimburse 80% up to $316,655.
Okay, have a motion by member Pachowski, a second by member Ozog. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Member
Thank you.
Pachowski.
And finally, Madam Chair, I move to approve DTR 0120-22, a resolution to join the coalition opposed to the merger of Canadian Pacific Railway and Kansas City Southern County not to exceed $100,000.
Motion by member Pachowski, a second by member Salmon. Any discussion on this item? Member Renahan.
I just wondering if we could just hear a little bit more information on this. I know it's something that's been in the news and I just like to air this out a little bit more.
Yeah, do we have anybody that can speak? Chris, are you online or Zoom?
Well, I know all of the villages, municipalities in District 1 have signed off on this. If this goes, I'm sorry, if this go on District 6 as well, the amount of volume is going to triple, if not go higher. And we need to be at the table to negotiate so the residents in those communities aren't adversely affected by this.
Member Ozog? Chris is coming on, but go ahead, Member Ozog, and then I'll get you, Chris.
Okay. My personal experience is that I was living next to the Chicago Northwestern when it was purchased by the Union Pacific in 1996. I can't even tell you how exponentially the traffic increased. And I think that while I'm not terribly hopeful that this will stop a merger, I think that it is really important for us to have a voice and to join with these municipalities, because the impact can be really severe, especially when you have at-grade crossings, which most of our towns do in this vicinity. And at least to try to have some kind of a seat at the table as this is being discussed is really important.
Thank you, Member Ozog. Can we get Mr. Schneider, and then we'll go to you. Chris, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chairwoman. Yeah, as Member Pachalski had mentioned, the proposal with the merger would increase the number of freight trains from 3 per day to upwards of 11. And as Member Ozog said, that's just a 5-year projection. One of the things we've asked for as a county through Member Pachalski to the Surface Transportation Board is they push those projections well more than 5 years, 10, 20 years, so that the communities know. And yes, all of them, have signed on to a coalition opposed to the merger. Obviously, the number of trains, the number of crossings, there's 18 crossings just within DuPage County. 4 of them are county highways. So there's a concern with not only traffic backups, but emergency response times, and also the increase in truck traffic, that many of these will be going to the Bensonville yard and then offloaded and then go back on the highway network, meandering through the local communities. So it's for those reasons that this is presented, to ultimately to the board for approval, and for DuPage County to stand with our communities.
Great, thank you, Chris. Member DeCiani, the members A.
Yeah, I concur with Mr. Schneider, and also Member Pachalski. As a rail community, we're seeing more and more rail needed for oil because the president and the national electeds have decided to shut down our pipelines, which has put more dependency on rail. The combination of rail transporting oil with a merger like this, not only is it going to increase the amount of train traffic, it's going to increase the amount of potential danger to our communities. So between traffic and danger, this is a big issue. A lot of our oil is being transported on rail right now, which is much more dangerous than in a pipeline. They train the rails, they could wipe out a whole community. So we got to make sure we have a seat at the table and oppose this merger. Thank you.
Thank you, Member DeCiani. Members A, and then Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this has a great effect on District 1 and District 6. As Member Ozog said, most of these crossings are at grade. This puts first responders time really where we know minutes count at a problem there. I mean, from 3 to 11, they're talking about the size of these trains. They're not only going to block these, they're going to be longer. They're going to block multiple through possibly Itasca, Wooddale, Medina, where they're blocking multiple grade crossings where, I mean, you're talking where first responders are going to have to go way out of their way to try to get there or look at other communities to respond to their calls. So we need to see at the table. We need to know what's going on here in this area. And hopefully, like I said, we never do well on these, but hopefully get our point across and get some kind of negotiation on it.
Thank you, Members A. Member Schwarzy, and then, Member Ozog, then Member Schwarzy. Go ahead, Member Ozog.
Another consideration that we need to consider the impact on Metra as well, because Metra is just trying now to rebuild ridership, and something like this can really put a wrench in their day-to-day operations. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Schwarzy.
And just echoing a lot of things people said, but with regards to first responders, we have specific routes that we take to get to certain residents or locations without taking into account whether a train is going to be at that crossing or not. So we will sit at a crossing with our lights on, waiting for that train to cross. So it does happen. It even happens today, and this would increase it tenfold. So I'm in support of this resolution.
Great, thank you. Yes, and as a member of the DuPage Railroad Safety Council, we've discussed this a lot. And I think they're going to be very pleased that we are going to hopefully approve this resolution today. So any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Member Pachowski. We move on to item number 9, finance resolutions. Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on FIO 0018-22 ordinance amendment of the county recorder fees for impositions of new fees for filing of a restricted covenant modification, increase the return check fee.
Motion by Member Krajewski. Do I have a second? Second by Member Salmon. Any discussion? Member Krajewski, go ahead,
I
please.
just had a question. So it appears our service provider, the bank, raised the return check fee to $25. So that's what we're just passing that on.
That is my understanding. Is anybody here from the recorder's office or? Mr. Manzullo, thank you for coming up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Finance Committee members. In part, yes, we were charging $4.50. That's approximately what the bank is charging our account. But when we looked at that, we put far more time and expense.
So this is time, I thought the bank increased the fee.
Oh, no. We took a look at a couple of things. One of the things we looked at is what the treasurer was charging for return check fees. And they're charging, you look at the back of your tax bill, that's where I found it. They're charging $25.
No, that's what I was going to ask, is if it was uniform, then we're charging the same price. Because this says it is necessary to also update a recording fee schedule to reflect an increase in the service provider return check fee. So it's just basically an increase. It's our time, because the one before it, that's what I was getting to, is it said the $10 increase to restricted fee is to cover your additional processing expenses.
Oh, yeah, that's two different things. This resolution is doing two different things.
Understand. My question was, I was just thought the bank was charging us $25 and we weren't putting any of our time into that fee to raise it to maybe
Oh, no,
35.
we have to
unlike
chase
you
these
did
folks
for
down.
10. So,
Yeah.
all right, so it's the same as the, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Krajewski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to combine items B through G, which are all acceptance and appropriation resolutions.
I have a motion by Member Krajewski, a second by Member Desart to combine items B through G under finance resolutions. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Member Krajewski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on FIR 0107-22, which is a resolution for additional appropriation for the Sheriff's Sex Offender Fund, amount of $2,166. FIR 0108-22, resolution for additional appropriation for the Adult Redeployment Illinois Program grant, going from $349,131 to $360,481, which is an increase of $11,350. FIR 0111-22, resolution for acceptance appropriation of the Illinois Court Technology Modernization Program grant, amount of $209,108. FIR 0112-22, resolution for additional appropriation to the State Drug Traffic Prevention Fund for $678. FIR 0117-22, resolution with the acceptance and appropriation of the State CARES Pandemic-Related Stability Payments Program grant, $231,572. And last, FIR 0118-22, resolution for acceptance appropriation of the State CARES Pandemic-Related Stability Payments Grant Program grant for $345,000.
Hey, I have a motion by Member Krajewski, a second by Member Desart to approve items B through G under finance. Any discussion on any of these items? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Member Krajewski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on FIR 0124-22, which is a resolution for authorization to transfer and appropriate $9,500,000 additional funds from the general fund to the county infrastructure fund for fiscal year 21.
I have okay. I didn't hear you. So, I have a motion by Member Krajewski, a second by Member Desart. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on FIR 0123-22, which is a resolution for additional appropriation for the Facilities Management County Infrastructure Fund, County Unit 1220 for $9.5 million.
I have a motion by member Krajewski, a second by member Ozog. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, member Krajewski. We move on to items number 10, informational. Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to receive and place on file informational items, A, payment of claims, B, appointments, and C, grant proposal notifications.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by member Krajewski and a second by member Tornatori to receive and place on file informational items A, B, and C. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we move on to old business, and we have a presentation today. Anthony's going to come up from technology to give us a presentation on the closed captioning. So welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wanted to provide some positive news today. Moving to the next slide. One second, the teams. Yeah, it's hard. It happens. I'm going to go ahead. So wanted to provide some good news to you today to let you know that Zoom now provides live closed captioning, which is real time. It's an awesome new functionality that provides a lot of benefits to us as a county. So number one, it's free to us and it's free to all of their current users. So no additional costs here. Number two, we can enable the service at any time and we'd like to enable it as soon as possible because it provides a lot of our viewers, both here and those online, with the ability to see what's going on here real time. So it helps deaf, the individuals who are hard of hearing, but it also helps with comprehension for those who are non-English, non-native English speakers. So it's a very positive thing. It also makes it, the meeting is also recorded on Zoom and then uploaded to YouTube. Currently, we complete our meetings, we upload it, and then we allow for YouTube to translate. That's after the fact. So this happens real time. Any meeting stream through our website. So essentially our board meeting and stormwater, those items will be, the closed captioning will be captured as part of the recording. All other meetings will not, and you can see it live now, which is what I was hoping for before. So you see that it's translating everything that I'm saying with a with great accuracy. So, all right. So also wanted to share a couple caveats of things that you should be aware of and keep in mind. Number one, it's not 100% accurate. It's very close, but from time to time, it will mistranslate some of your words. So be aware of that. Anyone speaking in the room shows up on the screen as all of the boardroom, right? So it doesn't have the ability to pick out individuals within the room. However, people who are remote, it will show you, if you're remote, your name, and it will translate specifically to that individual. If people speak over each other, unfortunately, the words get mixed together. So you have to give people an opportunity to complete their statements, then it will translate it clearly between the two. If your microphone is on, and this one is very important, make sure you'll know because of the red light here. If it's on, it's going to pick everything up. So it's it's very important that you are aware of that and you turn off your microphone. Otherwise, it's going to pick it up. The last item, which I think is super important, IT cannot add, delete, or modify anything that's translated by the closed captioning solution, right? So if you say it, it's going to show up. So just be very aware of that and make sure that You also turn off your microphone if it's on. If you're not speaking, whether you're in this room or if you're remote, make sure that you hit mute each and every time you're done speaking, just as a habit. All right, and then last but not least, just a reminder that there are 3 mics in here. Only 3 mics can be on at one time, so make sure that you turn those mics off when you get an opportunity. But this is a great opportunity for us to serve your constituents directly, right? Your deaf and non-English speaking constituents directly. So.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to questions, and I have Member LaPlante, followed by Member Selman, followed by Member Covert.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful. My only question is, when you said sometimes it will not translate accurately, is there a chance to fix that?
It's not.
Okay.
No, unfortunately,
okay.
There's no chance. Whatever it translate is recorded, and that's it. And we don't have the ability to go in to make modifications.
All right, and watch me turn my mic off.
I've seen some research that says it's 95 to 99% accurate. Some that say 80 to 85. It really depends. If you articulate your words, you talk slowly, it usually translates very well. So.
Thank you, Member LaPlante. Member Selman.
Just briefly, a quick question. Is there a filter for like profanity? So it could, if it thinks we're saying duck and we're not talking about duckies?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer to that. I can get an answer to you, but
just in case anyone speaks a little quick.
It's great. I'll look into that. So.
All right. And then just lastly, I wanted to thank you specifically. I mean, I think anytime we have a solution that's this exciting, there's always excitement in the room, but the fact that it is free, I think you get an extra kudo for. I know myself, Member Covert and Member Rutledge have been working with some constituents who are hard of hearing, and I know they're really excited about the opportunity to understand in real time. I think I hadn't understood how difficult that was until we had some discussions about the captioning issue. So it allows people at home, it allows people sitting in the room to follow along. And I know, many of our communities have non-native English speakers, so it just makes our work here a lot more accessible. So thank you again for your leadership.
More than welcome.
Thank you, Member Selman. Member Covert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you. I really like this development of our closed captioning. I remember when Member Hart and I and Member Selman and Rutledge were working on this resolution, our first 2019. And I'm just really thankful that, oh, look, I see it translating right there. I'm really grateful that we've had really great developments on this front for people who are hearing impaired, and it's very important to, have all of our constituents involved in the county board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Member Covert. Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair. Anthony, I think I already know the answer to this question, but is there any way that a disclaimer could be added to the YouTube? And I know you'd have to get YouTube to come along with this, but again, I'm just going to ask the question, can we put some kind of a disclaimer that this is not 100% accurate translation of what actually occurred in the room?
Yeah, I think it may be a challenge, but it's something we'll look into for sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anthony, you said that you can turn this on or off at any time. So if we tried it for a few meetings and we found that the translation was not working, we could decide that maybe we don't want to go with it. But if we try it and it's working for a few meetings, then we could continue. Then we're not signing any contract or anything like that.
No, not at all. It's a flip of a switch.
So maybe we could try it for try it and see how it goes. I don't know what the board's thoughts are on that. I don't know that we have to discuss this right now, but
yeah, we absolutely have that ability to turn it on and off whenever.
Member Desart.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Anthony. Appreciate it. You said that this will be live for county board meetings and for stormwater meetings.
That's correct.
What about like JPS or finance meetings?
So Zoom will be able to capture it via Zoom in the room, but we won't be able to capture the closed captioning piece. So once we upload it to YouTube, YouTube's closed captioning application will, make that transition for us. So.
Okay, yeah, I was just mentioning those committees because they meet in this room.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation and
Thank
the
you.
information. And then it's something, that the board can discuss going forward. Do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by member Zay, second by member Covert. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone.